We're kicking off today with Smackdown, as during this week's show, fans learned a lot more about the imminent return of Charlotte Flair. On Smackdown, Charlotte appeared in a vignette and declared that she will be returning as part of next weekend's Women's Royal Rumble match, a contest she won back in 2020. On Twitter, Charlotte tweaked a line from Taylor Swift's track Willow to hype up her upcoming return, saying, "I come back harder than a 90s trend." It's been reported for some time that Flair's return was in the works, but it was only last week that WWE aired a vignette confirming that the return of one of their top women was near. Flair's entry into the Women's Royal Rumble raises plenty of questions, especially as it's been reported that she'll face Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania 41 this April. This match certainly suggests that Flair is one of the favorites to win next week, and if so, she'd make history as the first ever two-time Women's Royal Rumble match winner. Given that Flair often receives less than favorable responses from fans, it's for the best that she was announced ahead of time rather than her be a surprise entrant in the match. Will Flair win the Royal Rumble and write her name once again in the history books? Time will tell, but Flair is certainly going to be one to watch in the 8th annual Women's Royal Rumble. There were major developments from the WWE transfer window on SmackDown, as The Miz is now permanently on the SmackDown roster, a move that quickly turned sour for the A-lister. It was revealed that The Miz orchestrated the Wyatt Six's move to SmackDown, but now he's part of the Blue brand while the final testament is remaining on Raw. On Twitter, Karrion Kross implied that he was the one who got The Miz moved to SmackDown and sarcastically told The Miz to enjoy his future on the same brand as the Wyatt Six. Nick Aldis then encouraged Miz to go find some new friends fast, hinting at a possible new faction for the former WWE champion. If that is the case, the obvious question is who will join, and it's worth remembering that Miz does have history with one half of DIY, that being Tommaso Ciampa. Perhaps putting DIY with The Miz could lead to the Wyatt Six entering the tag title picture, and whether that happens or not, this segment should settle the nerves of fans of Uncle Howdy. The Wyatt Six had been moved to SmackDown a few weeks ago, but had not been used or brought up since, leaving fans to worry whether the group was being lost in the shuffle. The recent news about Alexa Bliss's return falling through had left fans even more concerned about the Wyatt Six, but this segment shows there's still plans for the faction. We may never know how much of these new plans are a pivot from what WWE originally had in mind, but if this is a stark change of plans for the group, then it's been done very well. Are you excited to see The Miz and the Wyatt Six on SmackDown? Who would you like to see align with the A-lister if that is the plan? Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Cody Rhodes was on SmackDown in an interview with Joe Tessitore to kick off the show, and later in the night, Kevin Owens shared his anger about this. Interestingly, the self-professed real WWE champion arrived wearing a Sami Zayn Forever shirt, continuing to allude to the idea that Zayn will help Owens become WWE champion. Jimmy Uso would come out to interrupt Owens' rant, setting up SmackDown's main event, but before the match, Carmelo Hayes jumped Jimmy, adding hype to their match next week. In what may have been a botch, though, after the attack and Hayes was taken away, Jimmy got up as if there'd been no problem, as he no-sold the ambush by the former NXT champion. It's unclear if this was a deliberate choice by Jimmy or just a moment of lapsed judgment, but having him smile and walk away from the ambush seemed very out of place on the show. Kevin Owens played mind games during his entrance as he arrived for the contest wearing a Naomi shirt, a nod to Naomi being the wife of Jimmy Uso. The commentary team acknowledged this in an interesting move, given that Naomi and Jimmy rarely interact on screen, especially since Jimmy has often been a heel while Naomi's a face. Perhaps this could be a sign that WWE wants to partner Jimmy and Naomi on screen, which would be a bold choice as many fans believe Naomi will be revealed as Jade Cargill's attacker. Owens also used Naomi's Feel the Glow line, and on Twitter, Naomi called the prizefighter messy and encouraged Jimmy to kick his butt. Owens defeated Jimmy in the 4th singles match since the pair first did battle on a WWE main event taping in 2015, and the prizefighter is now 4-0 against Jimmy Uso. The real WWE champion wasn't finished, as after the match he attempted to deliver his package piledriver to Jimmy on the commentary table. That was thwarted by Cody Rhodes, and SmackDown went off the air with the two brawling, and the two will come face-to-face at tonight's Saturday night's main event. The pair will sign the contract for their title match at the Royal Rumble, and expect things to get physical once again if this week's SmackDown is anything to go by. In less than a year, Jacob Fatu has quickly become one of WWE's most captivating stars and has proven to be the go-to man for Solo Sikoa's new bloodline. On this week's SmackDown, Solo was missing, resulting in Fatu once again taking the lead for the group ahead of his huge match at Saturday night's main event. Fatu delivered a promo walking to the ring from the backstage area, and once again Fatu nailed his promo, another feather in the cap for someone fans are predicting big things for. A figure in the background had fans online speculating about Uncle Howdy, but upon closer inspection, that person did not look like Bo Dallas's alter ego. After LA Knight's victory over Tama Tonga, Fatu attacked the former US champion, and as the beatdown continued, Braun Strowman emerged to confront the Samoan werewolf. Fatu looked genuinely shocked as the pair had a stare down, with WWE telling the story that Braun Strowman has proven to be a match for Fatu so far. The crowd were fully into this stare down, and while Braun would stand tall on this week's SmackDown, this may have spoiled the result of tonight's showdown. Fatu remains the heavy favorite to win tonight's match, as he is a star WWE is clearly pushing as a top star, which is expected to come at the expense of Strowman. WWE often has a wrestler stand tall on the go-home show only to lose the match at the premium live event, and that appears to have been the case this time once again. While some fans have called for this match to headline Saturday night's main event, that's also unlikely given that WWE has a World Heavyweight title match and the Rhodes Owens contract signing also announced. WWE did share a tale of the tape for Strowman vs. Fatu, giving the match a more big fight feel in what'll be Fatu's biggest spotlight as a singles competitor in his WWE run so far. In interviews, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair have both shown interest in facing each other, and now WWE is seriously considering a match between the two. Fightful Select reports that WWE is discussing a showdown for WrestleMania 41, marking the first singles match between two of the company's most dominant women. This is a match fans have been waiting on for years, and while they've come close in the past, circumstances have found a way to keep them apart. The pair had been set to compete at Money in the Bank 2022 for Belair's Raw Women's title, but after Ripley suffered an injury, Carmelo stepped in for the match. Since then, they've only shared brief moments in the ring, including as allies in last year's Women's War Games match at Survivor Series. Plans are always subject to change, as it had been reported that Ripley vs. Becky Lynch was once the plan, but if the Belair match happens, it'll be one of the biggest women's matches in years. Would you want to see Ripley and Belair go one-on-one at WrestleMania 41, or should WWE go in a different direction? Drop your thoughts in the comments. More from the transfer window, as Damian Priest was announced as SmackDown's newest arrival, and the World Heavyweight Champion was in action against Carmelo Hayes. This was a solid match that saw Priest get the win, and after the match, Priest had a backstage interaction with Cody Rhodes, who offered his hand to the Archer of Infamy. In a tease of what's to come, Priest told Cody, "See you soon, champ," teasing that he'll pursue the WWE Championship once Rhodes' feud with Kevin Owens is settled. Now, Deonna Purrazzo made waves when she signed with AEW in 2025, bringing her skills that had been honed in TNA Wrestling, AAA, and Ring of Honor. Despite feuds with names including Mariah May, Toni Storm, and Hikaru Shida, though, Purrazzo has found herself on the sidelines for a lot of her run, which has frustrated the virtuosa. According to Fightful Select, Purrazzo has been very vocal to management about wanting to be better utilized, especially around the time of Full Gear 2024, which was in her home state. The Newark, New Jersey event came and went without the virtuosa, leaving her frustrated, and her most recent match was on the January 4th Collision, where she lost to Toni Storm. Since then, there's been no matches, TV time, or clear direction for Purrazzo, despite her previously forming the Vendetta with Taya Valkyrie, though that hasn't kept her on TV. Purrazzo's resume speaks for itself, with titles and standout performances that prove she could be a top player, and she isn't keeping quiet about her frustrations. If AEW doesn't give her a spotlight, then perhaps fans will see the virtuosa take her talents elsewhere, and she's not the only name missing from TV. When PW Insider's Mike Johnson was asked about Stokely Hathaway's absence, he said that though he's not appearing on programming, he is still with the company. As for Purrazzo, there's no word on what's next for her, but the situation with the former Impact Knockouts champion is just part of a bigger issue among the roster. In addition to established names like Purrazzo, AEW has a roster stacked with promising young talents, but now a report has shown a light about things going wrong. A source within AEW told PW Insider that the company isn't doing enough to develop these young talents, and it's starting to show, and AEW believes talent just aren't working enough. The source pointed out that AEW wants young talent to work more, but isn't giving them enough dates or time in front of a live crowd for promos to develop the skills the company seeks. While names like Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita honed their skills worldwide before arriving in AEW, for many homegrown names, there's been little to no progress to be seen. Hook was a lightning-in-a-bottle breakout when he debuted, but years since his arrival in AEW, he remains at the same level when it comes to promos. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez elaborated further, with one AEW source saying the problem is that Tony Khan isn't being pushed hard enough to change things. The source said, "Nobody seems to be able to get through to Tony on this end. Yes, Top Flight needs more ring time in front of an actual live crowd, not a couple hundred waiting for a taping to end at 11:45 p.m. But these guys are also making well into the six figures. They aren't going to hustle for indie work or push Tony about it." AEW has all the tools to create future stars, but without more ring time, promos, and live experiences, many of its younger stars are at risk of being lost in the shuffle. If AEW wants to compete with WWE long-term, they need to focus on building the next generation of talent or risk watching names on their roster fall into obscurity. Does AEW need to do a better job developing its younger talent? Should these wrestlers take more initiative, or is it on Tony Khan to push them harder? And what do you make of AEW underutilizing Deonna Purrazzo? Should she get a bigger push or look for opportunities outside AEW? Share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section. Back to Smackdown, and it was announced on the show that WWE Tag Team Championships will be on the line next week at the Royal Rumble. On this week's show, Pretty Deadly took on the Motor City Machine Guns, and at one point fans noticed that there was padding on the edges of the ring. Now, this shouldn't be a massive surprise, as the sides of the ring feature LED boards, and a wrestler bumping onto the side could risk seriously hurting themselves. Adding a bit of padding helps talent keep safer and reduce the risk of injury, and in the end, it was the Guns who got the win over Pretty Deadly. The match came after a backstage segment that saw DIY continue to manipulate Pretty Deadly, leaving fans to wonder if Kit Wilson and Elton Prince could turn face and feud with DIY. In another backstage segment, the Guns spoke about DIY doing all they can to avoid giving them a rematch, but Alex Shelley revealed that they will get the rematch at the Royal Rumble. Not only will fans see the Guns versus DIY, but this will be a 2 out of 3 falls match, a stipulation rarely used on WWE's main roster. The match will also be the first time the WWE Tag Team titles have been defended on a PLE since WrestleMania 40, which was back when the titles were the Smackdown Tag Team titles. Finally, the tag titles are being showcased, and with 4 talented wrestlers, hopefully this match is given the time it needs to deliver next weekend at the Royal Rumble. This announcement wasn't the only major setback for DIY on SmackDown, as Johnny Gargano lost to Apollo Crews after the Motor City Machine Guns provided a distraction. The finish was interesting, as thanks to how WWE's camera team filmed it, it appeared Crews may have grabbed the tights, but it's impossible to say for certain. It's possible that WWE will explore this further, especially as Crews didn't celebrate his win over a current champion in WWE, and we'll have to see if this is leading to something bigger. More from the transfer window, as it was announced that Grayson Waller and Austin Theory have been moved to Raw, thwarting Miz's attempt to recruit them against the Wyatt Six. Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley was on SmackDown and shared a segment with Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton that was interrupted by Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Jax is declared for the Women's Royal Rumble match, and after some barbs, Naomi and Bianca Belair came out and also declared for the Women's Rumble match. Up next, it was Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez who declared for the Rumble, and Liv declared that she'd be winning in next week's 30-woman match. The segment set up a 6-woman tag team match that ended with Liv Morgan getting the pinfall win over Bianca Belair. In an interesting move, WWE practically confirmed that Stratton is now a face, as Liv called her a Liv doppelganger and said the women's title will look much better on her. The fact that WWE's top female heel targeted Stratton this way suggests a face turn, and we'll have to see if Morgan keeps her promise and wins next weekend's Rumble match. Michin and B-Fab defeated Chelsea Green and Piper Niven in a short match, with Michin pinning the Women's US Champion. On Twitter, Green showed some of the cuts and a bruised lip she suffered during the match, saying she didn't appreciate the audacity of Michin and B-Fab trying to dismember her. Later on, Michin shared that this win has earned her one more shot at the Women's US title on next week's SmackDown, and will the third time be the charm for Michin's pursuit of the gold? In a moment fans may have missed, Piper Niven was spotted speaking with Blair Davenport during the DIY Motor City Machine Guns segment, teasing that Blair could help Green next week. There were plenty of stars at SmackDown, both in and out of the ring, as Mark Henry was spotlighted in the crowd, as was Michelle McCool. The Undertaker, Michelle's husband, was also at SmackDown, but he remained backstage, where he shared a photo with Matthew McConaughey. The actor/wrestling fan was gifted a WWE Legacy title by the Phenom backstage, in a very cool moment between two greats in their respective fields. And that was this week's SmackDown. And what did you think of the go-home show before tonight's Saturday night's main event? Share your feedback down in the comments section. This April, WWE will host WrestleMania in Las Vegas, Nevada, and if history is any indication, fans traveling to Sin City will have plenty of wrestling to choose from. Smaller promotions often host shows over WrestleMania week, capitalizing on fans from around the world being in one city, but don't expect to see many names from AEW. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, AEW has reportedly banned its younger stars from competing at independent dates during WrestleMania 41 weekend. This is the latest effort of Tony Khan to distance his company from WrestleMania, and comes after reports that ROH Supercard of Honor will no longer take place that weekend. The show has traditionally been held over WrestleMania week, and while it's expected that the show will happen later in the year, though a date has not been confirmed. GCW, New Japan, TNA, and more have made use of WrestleMania week in the past, but for the young stars of AEW, they'll have to find somewhere else to work during this anticipated week. What do you make of this ban, especially amid reports that AEW believes talent aren't developing their skills enough? Share your thoughts down in the comments section. With a new partnership set to last for multiple years, WWE and TNA Wrestling are close allies these days, but WWE is hardly the first company TNA has worked with. Back in 2021, TNA partnered with AEW, a move that saw Kenny Omega hold the Impact World Championship, but TNA nearly became a Tony Khan brand 3 years earlier. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it's reported that Tony Khan was approached about purchasing the promotion in 2018, and discussions resurfaced last year. Last year's talks even saw Scott D'Amore name an offer price to the AEW president, but Khan, who already runs AEW and Ring of Honor, turned the offer down. After D'Amore was ousted from TNA by Anthem, it was revealed that he'd also tried to buy the promotion after learning of his departure, but his offer was rejected by TNA's ownership. Instead, TNA management chose to go in a different direction, one that has now led the company to a massive multi-year partnership with WWE. Tonight, WWE will host its Saturday night's main event special, and despite Hulk Hogan being featured in the promotion, he will not be a part of the NBC broadcast. While some have chalked this up as WWE fearing another hostile reaction, the reason for his absence is far more simple. He was never scheduled to be there in the first place. Hogan's son Nick is getting married this weekend, which is why he won't be at the event, which will instead feature legendary names including Shawn Michaels and Jesse Ventura. Michaels will be on hand to oversee tonight's contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, but despite being a WWE icon, HBK wasn't a part of Raw's debut on Netflix. On his 6 Feet Under podcast, The Undertaker shared that Michaels was planned to be shown in the crowd sitting with Stephanie McMahon, but there was a miscommunication. This meant that nobody came to get him when it was time for his on-screen moment, and Michaels was sitting in the dressing room when the cue came. By the time anyone realized the mistake, the moment had already passed, showing that things can and will go wrong, even in a show as historic as this one. Now, this week marked the end of an era as Titan Towers, WWE's longtime headquarters based in Stamford, has been sold. CT Insider reports that the real estate firm MB Financial Group has purchased the historic building for $3.7 million, with plans to convert it into apartment space. While the WWE logo still hangs on Titan Tower for now, the building was stripped of all WWE-related equipment some time ago, and this is the second major property WWE has offloaded. In December 2024, WWE sold its former production facility on Hamilton Avenue for $7.5 million, showing that this is indeed a new era for the company. For some time, Logan Paul and Conor McGregor have teased a showdown, but despite McGregor's recent claims about talks for a fight in India, this match will not be happening. Speaking to the Schmo, McGregor said UFC nixed the idea as they just aren't into it, and though he felt it would have made business sense, the fight is off. Instead of fighting McGregor, Paul's focus will remain on WWE, including an appearance on next week's Raw, leaving McGregor to seek out competition from elsewhere. And we're ending with Britt Baker, as a lot has been said about her and her AEW hiatus as of late, but this week, Baker resurfaced on social media for her work in Cobra Kai. Actress Alicia Hannah Kim shared a video alongside her co-stars, including Baker, as excitement continues to grow for the final part of the show's 6th season.